What if the key to a joyful life is chasing pleasure, but not the kind you think? Welcome to episode 21 of our 100-part journey through ancient and medieval philosophy, where we're diving into Epicurus, a philosopher who claimed pleasure is the secret to happiness. But is it really that simple? Get ready for a 2,500-year-old recipe that might just change how you live. Hey everyone, I'm your guide on this thrilling ride through ancient and medieval philosophy. And today we're stepping into the vibrant world of Epicurus, a thinker who's often painted as the ultimate party animal. But trust me, there's so much more to his story. In our last episode, we unpacked Aristotle's ethics, discovering happiness as a life of virtue and balance. Now we're switching gears to Epicurus, who puts pleasure at the heart of the good life. Not wild parties, but a deep, lasting calm. Picture finding peace in a world buzzing with chaos. That's Epicurus' promise. So grab a cozy spot, maybe a cup of tea, and let's explore his philosophy of pleasure and how it can light up our lives today. Let's travel back to Athens around 300 BCE, a city pulsing with ideas, where philosophers debated life's big questions in bustling markets and shady groves. Epicurus, born in 341 BCE on the island of Samos, arrives in Athens and sets up his school, called the Garden. Unlike the stuffy academy of Plato or Aristotle's Lyceum, the garden was a vibe. Think lush greenery, homegrown veggies, and a welcoming vibe for everyone, including women and slaves, which was downright revolutionary for ancient Greece. Epicurus wasn't here for abstract debates about ideal worlds. He wanted a practical roadmap to happiness. His big idea? Life's all about maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. Sounds like a dream, right? But let's unpack what he really meant. Epicurus founded Epicureanism, a philosophy that declares pleasure as the highest good, the thing we all chase, whether we admit it or not. But hold off on visions of endless wine and feasts. Epicurus' pleasure isn't about indulgence. It's about ataraxia, a Greek word for a state of serene tranquility, free from physical pain and mental worry. Imagine sitting by a quiet river, no deadlines nagging, no phone pinging, just pure unshakable calm. That's the happiness Epicurus is after. Not fleeting thrills, but a steady, peaceful joy. So, how does he define pleasure? Epicurus splits it into two types: moving pleasures and static pleasures. Moving pleasures are the quick hits, like biting into a warm chocolate chip cookie, dancing to your favorite song, or laughing at a great meme. They're awesome, but they fade fast. Static pleasures, though? That's the good stuff. The calm you feel when you're free from pain or stress. Picture finishing a stressful exam and collapsing onto your couch, no worries in sight. That moment of relief, of ataraxia, is what Epicurus says we should aim for. It's not about chasing highs, it's about avoiding lows. How do we get to this blissful state? Epicurus has a genius plan. Manage your desires. He sorts desires into three buckets: natural and necessary, natural but not necessary, and vain or empty. Natural and necessary desires are the basics you need to live well. Think food, water, a warm place to sleep. Satisfy these, and you're on track for contentment. Natural but not necessary desires are extras, like a fancy steak dinner or a new outfit. Nice, but you can live without them. Vain desires? Those are the traps, chasing fame, power, or a bank account with endless zeros. These often lead to stress, not happiness. Epicurus' tip? Focus on the necessary, enjoy the extras in moderation, and steer clear of the vain stuff that keeps you up at night. Let's try a real-world example. You're craving lunch. A simple sandwich with fresh bread and veggies hits the spot. That's a natural, necessary desire met, and you're content. Upgrading to a gourmet lobster roll with truffle fries? That's natural but not necessary. Tasty, but the price tag might stress you out. Obsessing over a private chef to impress your friends? That's a vain desire, likely to leave you anxious about status and bills. Epicurus says, keep it simple. Choose pleasures that bring peace, not pressure. But pleasure isn't just about what you eat or buy. It's about tackling the fears that steal your calm. Epicurus zeroes in on two big ones: fear of death and fear of the gods. On death, he drops a bombshell. Death is nothing to us. Why? Because when you're alive, death isn't here. When you're dead, you're not around to care. It's like worrying about missing a bus that only runs after you're gone. His famous line, "When we are, death is not. When death is, we are not," is a wake-up call to stop stressing about the inevitable and focus on living now. Then there's fear of the gods. In ancient Greece, people lived in dread of angry deities like Zeus, ready to smite you for a wrong move. Epicurus, who believed gods exist but are chilling in their own perfect realm, says they don't care about humans. They're not up there plotting your punishment or tweaking your fate. So ditch the fear of divine wrath and focus on what you can control. Your choices, your peace. This was a radical stance, freeing people from the grip of superstition. So how do you live like an Epicurean? It's all about simplicity and intention. In the garden, Epicurus and his crew lived modestly, growing their own food, sharing simple meals, and diving into deep conversations about life. They didn't need mansions or gold to be happy. They had each other, enough to eat, and a clear mind. Friendship was a cornerstone for Epicurus. He called friends one of life's greatest pleasures, not just for laughs, but because they're your safety net, your sounding board, your partners in growth. Think of that friend who always knows how to make you smile. That's Epicurean joy in action. Epicurus also pushes you to think before you act. Ask yourself, will this choice bring more pleasure than pain? It's like running a quick mental calculation. Tempted to splurge on a designer bag? Sure, it might feel great for a day, but the credit card bill could haunt you for months. Instead, grabbing coffee with a friend, low cost, high joy, might be the smarter pick. This isn't about saying no to fun. It's about choosing pleasures that don't bite you later. Epicurus' ideas were bold, and they ruffled feathers. Critics slapped the hedonist label on him, assuming he was all about reckless indulgence. Total misunderstanding. Epicurus was about smart pleasure, picking what brings lasting calm over fleeting highs. His inclusive garden, open to all walks of life, was also a big deal in a society rigid with class and gender barriers. He was a trailblazer, showing happiness wasn't just for the elite. His influence didn't stop in Athens. Epicureanism spread to Rome, inspiring poets like Lucretius, who wove its ideas into his epic on the nature of things. Fast forward to the Enlightenment, and thinkers like John Locke echoed Epicurus' focus on reason and happiness. Today, his fingerprints are on minimalism. Think Marie Kondo's Spark Joy mantra, or mindfulness practices that help you find calm in a hectic world. Ever decluttered your closet and felt lighter? That's Epicurus whispering, focus on what matters. But Epicurus isn't flawless. Critics argue his philosophy leans selfish. Focusing on personal peace might sideline sacrifices for others. Aristotle, for instance, tied happiness to virtue and helping the community, while Epicurus zooms in on individual tranquility. Some say he downplays big dreams, like changing the world, which might feel limiting if you're an activist or artist. And his don't fear death stance? It's logical but cold comfort when you're grieving a loved one. Still, his core idea, happiness as a calm, simple life, hits home in our overworked, overconnected age. How can we channel Epicurus today? Start with one small change. Cut back on social media for an hour. It's often a vain desire, feeding comparison and stress. Spend that time with a friend who lifts you up, maybe over a homemade meal. When anxiety creeps in, ask, is this worth my peace? If you're fretting over something beyond your control, like what others think or what happens after death, take a page from Epicurus and let it go. Focus on the now. A good conversation, a quiet walk, a moment of gratitude. Epicurus' big takeaway? Happiness isn't about having everything. It's about savoring what you have. In a world screaming at us to buy more, achieve more, be more, he whispers. Slow down, choose wisely, find joy in the simple. That's his 2,500-year-old recipe for a life that's truly free. That's a wrap for episode 21. We've unpacked Epicurus' philosophy of pleasure and his guide to a tranquil, joyful life. If you're hooked on this ancient and medieval philosophy adventure, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Drop a comment. What's one simple pleasure you'll chase to find your ataraxia? Thanks for joining, and I'll see you in episode 22 for more timeless wisdom.